virtual presentation and live question and answer for the State Route 316 at Jimmy Daniel Road project. This project is among a series of proposed roadway improvements that will transform State Route 316 in Gwinnett, Barrow, and Oconee counties. These improvements aim to improve mobility, reduce the frequency and severity of crashes, and enhance traffic flow conditions in this critical vehicle and truck thoroughfare. I'm Kyle Collins, your moderator for today's event. On behalf of the Georgia Department of Transportation and the entire project team, thank you for joining us this afternoon. The purpose of today's event is to provide you with an opportunity to learn more about the State Route 316 at Jimmy Daniel Road project and ask questions of our designated subject matter experts. Keep in mind that the conceptual design for this corridor is not yet final, so all the materials you see today, as well as the materials on the project page, are subject to change. One of the big ways you can make your voice heard today is by submitting comments about the project, and we'll explain all the ways you can do that later in this session. Let's begin. This is a 2-hour virtual live event. As such, we have a few ground rules to maximize your time with us and answer your questions accurately and thoughtfully. We will start this event with a pre-recorded video presentation. During today's session, you will be on mute. However, throughout the session, you can submit questions using the Microsoft Teams live Q&A chat box. We urge you to keep your questions concise and specific to this project. Also, please use appropriate language. After the presentation, I will read questions for the project team to respond to. Keep in mind that we may group similar questions together. We will not repeat questions and answers until we have been through all questions. If we don't get to your question or the question involves a more detailed technical response and we're able to get to you during this time frame, we will respond within 3 business days. But for us to respond to you, however, it's important that you include your contact information. If you do not include your contact information when you entered this live event, please exit and log back into the session to provide those details. Please note that all comments submitted will be part of the official public record. Because this is a virtual event, it's important that you use a strong Wi-Fi or reliable wired connection. But if you get disconnected, you can always log back into the session. A recording of this virtual meeting will be posted on the web page listed on your screen by Tuesday, May 31st. Jot down this web page or scan the QR code to enter and explore the virtual meeting room platform for this virtual open house currently underway. If there are any elected officials joining us today, please send us your name and office in the chat for our records. This platform does provide closed captioning. Click on the closed captioning icon shown with the letter CC at the bottom right corner of your page. To change the language, click on the setting icon shown as a gear to the right of the closed captioning icon. Don't worry about memorizing these tips. We're going to post them later today in the session as a gentle reminder. For now, we will start a pre-recorded video presentation featuring Achor Njoku, the project manager for the State Route 316 at Jimmy Daniel Road project. This presentation will provide an overview of the project and give you a few suggestions on how to navigate the virtual public information open house, as well as submit your comments. Let's roll the video.
I want to welcome everyone to this virtual presentation and Q&A for the State Route 316 at Jimmy Daniels Road project. My name is Achor Njoku, and I'm the project manager for this roadway improvement project. Our goal today is twofold. First, we want to provide you with an overview of the project, and we will do that in this presentation. Secondly, after the presentation, we will transition into a live Q&A session, which will give you an opportunity to have your questions answered from our designated subject matter experts. Our subject matter experts will be able to answer questions about the proposed conceptual design, right-of-way, and our environmental impacts, and more. However, we may not be able to answer every question, and in some cases, we may need to do additional research before providing a response. As Kyle mentioned, you will be on mute throughout today's event. However, You can submit questions using the Microsoft Teams live Q&A chat box at any time, including during this pre-recorded presentation. Again, thank you for joining us. This project proposes 2 changes at State Route 316 and Jimmy Daniels Road. Number 1, remove the existing signalized at-grade crossing at the intersection. Number 2, create a grade-separated diamond interchange with a single-lane roundabout to be constructed at the State Route 316 eastbound and westbound ramp intersections with Jimmy Daniel Road. It is important to note that the proposed improvements are part of a series of reconstruction projects along State Route 316 from State Route 20 in Gwinnett County to State Route 10 in Athens, Oconee County. These projects will upgrade sections of State Route 316 to more of a free-flow facility, which may provide a safer travel experience. State Route 316 is a primary east-west corridor in northeast Georgia that connects Greater Atlanta and the Athens metropolitan area. These improvement projects will address some of the primary challenges along the corridor, particularly high crash rates and congestion. This project is located in Oconee County, just west of Athens. The overall project length is approximately 1.2 miles. Finally, as you can see on this map, this project is bundled with other design-build projects as part of State Route 316 Bundle 2. The 3 Georgia DOT projects have been packaged together for procurement and construction. The other 2 design-build projects appear grayed on your screen. Next month, in mid-June, we will have a similar meeting to address these projects. This slide shows the proposed conceptual design or layout. This is a preliminary layout and subject to change. We call this layout the preferred alternative as it best balances the needs of the project corridor with potential impacts such as property and environmental impacts. If you haven't already visited the virtual meeting room on the project website, I encourage you to do so. A link and a QR code are provided here. Within the virtual meeting room, you can view the proposed concept in greater detail, view the typical sections, and watch a visualization video which offers an aerial, 3-dimensional perspective of the project to assist you in better visualizing the proposed improvements along the corridor. During our Q&A portion, you may ask questions about the concept. Let's talk about the existing conditions within the project corridor. And we've provided a few statistics to help frame the primary challenges: traffic, vehicle incidents, and congestion. We measure traffic congestion using what's called level of service. Level of service quantitatively describes operational conditions of a roadway based on factors such as speed, travel time, maneuverability, delay, and safety. Level of service is determined with a letter from A to F. Level of service A represents the best operational conditions, and F represents the worst. For the intersection of State Route 316 at Jimmy Daniels Road, we are seeing a level of service C in the AM peak hour and level of service D in the PM peak hour. Level of service C indicates stable but restricted traffic flow with significant vehicle interactions. Level of service D indicates that there is an even heavier volume of vehicles, restricting both vehicle speed and maneuverability. If we do nothing at this intersection, you have what we call the no-build condition. We can expect these already existing challenges to worsen in future years. Traffic volumes are expected to increase, so the number of crashes are also likely to increase. By 2028, the intersection is expected to perform at a level of service E in the AM peak hour and level of service F in the PM peak hour. By moving forward with the project, we anticipate improvements or benefits. We expect this project will improve mobility, reduce potential severity and frequency of crashes, and improve traffic flow conditions. By eliminating at-grade intersection, it will reduce the number of vehicle conflict points and therefore potentially reduce the number of crashes at the intersection. And by 2028, the anticipated open to traffic year, the SR 316 eastbound ramp intersection and SR 316 westbound ramp intersection with Jimmy Daniels Road will operate at a level of service A. This is the proposed project schedule. We started the environmental process in 2021, and it will continue until 2023. We are currently conducting a virtual public information open house, which includes the virtual event you are participating in today. In 2023, we will select a design build team, and we anticipate construction starting in 2024. We expect substantial completion of this project by 2027. We will continue to provide regular updates and communication to stakeholders and the public throughout the life of the project. It's important to note that the project schedule and the dates are subject to change. As discussed earlier in the presentation, we encourage you to visit the virtual meeting room platform on the project website. There you will be able to view project information on the environmental process, current concept layouts, anticipated right-of-way needs, noise barrier information, as well as other details. Once you have viewed the materials, you will also have the opportunity to provide comments on the project. Georgia DOT encourages you to comment on any aspect of the project, from conceptual design to environmental process. Robust feedback ensures that decisions are made in consideration of and to the benefits of the public needs and preferences. To that end, we have provided several ways for you to comment as shown on your screen. The comment period is open until June 10th, so you still have time to submit your feedback. Once the comment period has ended, the project team will respond to all comments in the official comment response letter. Once completed, the letter will be posted to the project web page. Our goal is to post the letter in July. This concludes this pre-recorded presentation. Stay up to date on the project by visiting the project web page at the link listed here. I will now turn it back to Kyle to begin the live Q&A portion of the event. Again, thank you for joining us today. I want to welcome everyone to this.
Thank you for that, Achor. Now we'll move on to the live Q&A portion of this event. But before we do that, I'm going to review our ground rules again for the benefit of those just joining us. During today's session, you will be on mute. However, throughout the session, you can submit your questions using the Microsoft Teams live Q&A chat box. We urge you to keep your questions concise and specific to this project. Also, please use appropriate language. In a few moments, I will read the questions for the project team to respond to. Keep in mind that we may group similar questions together. We will not repeat questions and answers until we have been through all questions. If we don't get to your question or the question involves a more detailed technical type response than we're able to get to you this evening, do not worry. We will respond within 3 business days. But for us to respond to you, it's important that you include your contact information. If you do not include your contact information when you enter this live event, please exit and log back in to provide those details. Please note that all comments submitted will be part of the official public record. Because this is a virtual event, it's important that you use a strong Wi-Fi or reliable wired connection. But if you get disconnected, you can always log back into the session. A recording of this virtual meeting will be posted on the web page listed on your screen by Tuesday, May 31st. Jot down the web page or scan the QR code to enter and explore the virtual meeting room space, which is a platform we have for our virtual open house currently underway. If there are any elected officials joining us today, please send us your name and office in the chat for our records. This platform does provide closed captioning. Click on the closed captioning icon shown with the letters C at the bottom right corner of your page. To change the language, click on the settings icon shown as a gear to the right of the closed captioning icon. With that, let's start the Q&A. Let's publish the first question. Okay, let's see, first question. And y'all, just to give you an introduction, my partner, in routing these questions today is going to be Gdot's Marlo Clowers, who is our alternative delivery program manager. So Marlo is going to kind of help me through this process. So looks like our first question is, will we be able to use the intersection throughout the construction period? If not, during what time periods will it be closed to traffic, and what is the workaround? So Marlo, as far as maintaining traffic during construction, how would we like to answer that one?
Thank you, Kyle. That is a very good question. We want to make sure that we maintain access as much as we can and keep folks safe while the project is being constructed. But I will turn that question over to Mr. Ben Klopper to provide some additional information.
Thank you very much, Marlo. And to answer that question, yes, traffic will be maintained through the intersection during construction until the construction is complete, and then it'll be shifted over to the new interchange. So thank you for the question.
Perfect. Thanks, Ben. All right. Question number 2. We have a question about Julian Drive access. So will it continue to be direct to State Route 316? Does Gdot plan to eliminate access? If so, what is the new traffic pattern and access? And Marlo, I'm not 100% sure if Julian Drive is within this 316 and Jimmy Daniel footprint, but how would we like to clarify that one for the citizen?
Yes, I believe Julian Drive may not be included within the limits of this project. But I will ask again, Mr. Klopper, if he can provide us, confirm or deny that.
Thank you again, Marlo. Yes, that is correct. So the intersection of Julian Drive and State Route 316 is outside of the limits of this particular project. However, it is included in improvements that Gdot is planning throughout the State Route 316 corridor. I believe that project, in terms of its development, is not as far along as the project we are speaking about today, but information is available on Gdot's 316 corridor website. So thank you for the question.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. All righty. Question number 3. Is this style of interchange unique to State Highway 316? Or are there other examples of this elsewhere on this 40-mile highway? So Marlo, as far as this diamond style with potential roundabouts, how does that shape up to what has been done and maybe what's planned for the future on 316?
That's a great question, Kyle. There have been this type of interchanges before implemented in the state of Georgia. However, I will ask Mr. Jonathan Langley to give some more background on this type of interchange in the 316 corridor.
Thank you, Marlo. So you are absolutely right. There are other diamond style interchanges being installed along the 316 corridor right now. However, this will be the first interchange to have roundabouts at the top of the ramps. There are other interchange projects along 316 exploring similar types of roundabouts on those projects. The main difference for someone who would be traveling on this interchange, if you're not used to the roundabout, would just be as you exit the ramp, as you leave 316 and come up the interchange, at the top of each ramp, there is a roundabout instead of a traffic signal, which is what some people may be used to. So that's a very good question. Hopefully that answers your question, and thank you very much for reaching out to ask us that.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jonathan. Okay, what else do we got here? From David Moore. So how would the Jimmy Daniel Road grade elevation change after completion of the project on the north side of 316 between 316 and Merriweather Drive? Basically, how will the elevation change? Will the road elevation of Jimmy Daniel be raised to go over the existing 316 grade elevation, or will the road elevation of 316 change? So just generally, Marlo, what are we looking at grade-wise as far as separation and elevation changes for Jimmy Daniel and any changes to 316 as part of this project?
That is a very good question. I know that's something that definitely would be of interest to people who travel this corridor frequently. And so I would ask again, I will turn to Mr. Ben Klopper to talk some about the elevation changes that are going to be associated with Jimmy Daniel.
All right. Thank you, Marlo. So yes, the design right now calls for Jimmy Daniel Road to be routed over the existing elevation of State Route 316. And so that would be high enough to accommodate truck traffic along 316 along with the height of the bridge. And then going north, that profile of the road will drop back down until it meets back to the existing roadway elevation for Jimmy Daniel Road, which is right about at the intersection with Merriweather Drive. So thank you for your question.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, Robert has a question here. Some homeowner properties are highlighted by light blue dashes. What does N/F mean in these areas? So that's pertaining to citizens interpreting that concept layout that's on our website. So we want to kind of go through that, Marlo, as far as what homeowner properties and the blue dashes mean.
Thank you, Kyle. Yes, that's a very good question. I know that's always of interest. We have our symbols, and we want to make sure you understand what we're trying to communicate with that as far as right-of-way is concerned. So we have on the panel Mr. Phil Copeland, who is our right-of-way SME, and so I will ask Phil to weigh in on that response.
Thank you very much, Marlo. Yes, the dashed blue lines that you will see on the layouts are from the tax and survey information in the area, and it's intended to indicate what we know the existing property lines of a property to be. So, and the N and F is merely an acronym for it is now owned by, or it is formerly owned by the name that appears below it. So the blue dashed lines are to indicate your existing property lines, and the N and F is now or formerly owned by the name that appears below. Thank you, Marlo. Thank you for your question, Robert.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. Okay, Kathy Mason has a question here. What are the plans for alternate routes while construction continues? And Marlo, I know we had mentioned kind of in that initial question about maintaining traffic during construction, and that's part of these projects that has to happen. But anything else you want to clarify as far as if folks would need to detour around during this time once it starts?
Right now, we are still looking at whether there'll be a need for that, but I will ask Mr. Jonathan Langley to weigh in on detour routes during construction.
Thank you very much, Marlo, and certainly understand why there are questions around this idea. At this time, there are no off-site detours planned, so that means that traffic will be maintained in a similar pattern to the way that they are operating now while the construction is occurring. Similar to the answer that was provided earlier on in this conversation, traffic will maintain on the existing alignment or very close to that existing alignment while the interchange and the bridge are being constructed. When that construction is completed, the traffic will then move into those new facilities. Thank you for your question.
Thanks for that, Jonathan. Okay, let's see here. We have a schedule question, Marlo. So is the schedule to start construction still in 2024? And if so, what quarter? It looks like based on our presentation, we're hoping by 2024 to have things started, kind of boots on the ground, if you will. Is that still the case and the expectation for this project?
Yes, currently that is still, we are still targeting 2024 for the start of construction. So, but I will ask Mr. Ben Klopper if there's anything to add to that.
Thank you, Marlo. So at this point, we don't have further details on exactly when construction will begin. This project is being let using the Gdot's design build model, meaning that the the contracting and design team that wins the project after it's let later this year, they'll be responsible for developing a full project schedule within the framework that Gdot sets out. And so there'll be more details known at that time. But thank you for the question.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, next question. Can you please describe plans for sound barriers? So that's a popular topic that we get often as it pertains to highway improvements. So Marlo, where we want to go as far as that kind of, it sounds like it's an environmental question, but sound barriers.
Yes, that is always a hot topic on every project. That is part of noise impacts are part of the environmental process. And I know that Ms. Amber Phillips, who's on the panel today, can provide a lot more background on the noise barrier process. So Amber.
Thank you, Marlo. Yeah, so as part of this project, as Marlo mentioned, a detailed noise impact assessment will be completed. And if we find impacts, we'll look at different abatement measures that can be evaluated to determine if your community qualifies for a noise wall to be installed. This is looked at during the project's design phase, and the preliminary design phase is scheduled to begin in 2023. So that's approximately when the noise wall study would begin. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Amber. Okay, Kathy has another one for us. Kathy Mason. Will this change increase through traffic on Merriweather? So Marlo, we have a question about construction and the changes here. Any anticipations to send more cars down Merriweather Drive?
Right now, that is a very good question, something definitely to be interested in. We don't anticipate any increase in through traffic on Merriweather Drive, but I will ask Kamari to add any additional information to that.
Hey Marlo, yeah, that is correct. We do not anticipate any increase in traffic with the proposed interchange. Thank you for the question.
Thanks, Kamar. Robert has the next question for us. So this is pertaining to the concept sketch and the drawings we have on the website. I can't tell how you would get from the height of the top of the bridge down to the level of the roundabouts in such a short distance. Will there be a lot of elevation? Thank you. So Marlo, have another design, elevation, grade alteration question here for the citizen.
And thank you, Kyle. That is a very good question. I know it's hard to visualize these roadway design changes from just the two-dimensional layout. And so I will again ask Mr. Ben Klopper to provide some insight into that question.
Thank you, Marlo. And yes, that's a very good point about the elevation coming down from the bridge back towards Merriweather Drive. That roundabout, particularly the one on the north side there, will be essentially up in the air from where the existing ground is right now and where the road is. We'll be coming down from that bridge at a grade of about 6%, which is allowable for the type of road that Jimmy Daniels is. And that'll continue down through the roundabout until it meets back to where the existing road is at around Merriweather Drive. So thank you for the question.
Thanks, Ben. We have another construction operation type question. What are the daily hours of construction? So Marlo, that may be kind of tough to gauge at this point before we get the contract awarded and some of the provisions, but any details you want to provide this citizen as far as normal daily hours of operation for the build?
Thank you, Kyle. That's a good question. Definitely something to be interested in. We are still developing all the documents, but I will ask Jonathan Langley to provide any background on construction hours of operation.
Yes, thank you, Marlo. And as you mentioned, that is not something that has been finalized or formalized at this point. The way that the process works is when the contract is completed and a design build contractor is brought on board, that contract will establish those hours. And that is something that is still under development and has not been finalized yet. It is a common practice to look at the travel patterns of an area when people are using the roads and to ensure that the minimum amount of impact to people's daily travel would be needed, especially concerning things like special events. If there were special events in the area, days like that could very well be restricted in that contract. So very good question, understand why that's important, and thank you for asking the question.
Awesome, thanks, Jonathan. We have a next question from David Barnhart. This is a wonderful design, so thank you, David. Thanks for your hard work and research in providing a safe and efficient intersection for the citizens of Oconee County and those traveling through our area. Why are some ramp intersections installed with lights? Is that a factor of traffic volume? So having lights around the intersection, Marlo, how would we like to direct that question? What goes into determining those?
That is a very good question. And it's also very good to hear a positive comment. So thank you very much. We know a lot of hard work has gone into the drawings that you see here tonight. So there are different factors that by lights, I imagine you are talking about the intersection, the ramp intersections. But I will ask Ms. Kamari to weigh in on how those are determined.
Thank you, Marlo. Yes, I think that's a great question. So there are many factors that help us determine if we need traffic lights at intersections. So volumes and crash data are two of the most important factors that determine that. And I believe for the ramp terminals at Jimmy Daniel Road, I believe the criteria is not met for us to have signals at the intersections. Thank you for the question.
Thanks, Kamari. Okay, next question. This is another, as it pertains to Julian Drive. I know we addressed that a little bit earlier. Will access to Julian Drive then stay direct to 316 East and West until the Julian Drive project commences? Marlo, how do we like to handle that question as far as Julian Drive access?
I will hand that question off to Mr. Ben Klopper. It's a very good question.
Thank you again, Marlo. And yes, access at Julian Drive to 316 will be maintained during and after this project until that future project is constructed. So thank you for the question.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, next question. It's about project costs initially. The project cost is $75 million. Did this diamond style with a roundabout add to the cost as opposed to a bridge with traditional exit and entrance ramps? Marlo, how do we compare the cost of what we're looking at here to something that the citizen describes as just a more traditional exit and entrance ramp setup?
Well, thank you. That is a very good question. Cost is always something that we keep in top of mind as we're developing any roadway project, any concept. So I will ask Mr. Jonathan Langley to weigh in on the cost difference between these types of interchanges that are proposed here and more traditional diamonds.
Thank you, Marlo. Yes, of course, like you said, cost is something that we pay extra close attention to. And in the case that we're talking about here, about the difference between the cost of the roundabouts versus more traditional traffic signals, the costs are roughly the same. And so in this case, these costs balance out. In one hand, you have the footprint or the overall impact of that round shape of the roundabout area. And then on a traffic signal, you would have additional costs that go into constructing the signals themselves and all of the electronics and equipment that go along with that. So there's a pretty close balance between the two. And in this case, they come to be almost exactly the same. So thank you for that question.
And Jonathan, kind of expanding on that, we just, with this concept, it has roundabouts included, but what about that versus just having the stop condition when you're coming off the ramps? Maybe why was the roundabout selection made as opposed to what some people would normally see with stop signs, let's just say?
Sure. Yes, that's a great question. And I know Kamari touched on this a few minutes ago as well. There is an analysis as a part of our traffic studies that we look at to see the potential congestion or the potential use of traffic in each of the different configurations. And all of those factors are considered. So we will look at a stop condition where you just have stop signs, which I'm sure folks have seen on some interchange styles. We will look at traffic signals and how those operate. And of course, those can be efficient, but then sometimes they do create delays on the side of the street that is currently stopped. And then you have analysis of those roundabouts. And in that situation, you're looking at the traffic coming from each direction and how it operates based on the traffic flow of that analysis that's being conducted of the existing and the future conditions. So in this case, there was an analysis that was done to look at each of those three conditions, and the one that came back with the best balance of low impacts and best traffic operations. Of course, safety is always a factor as well. That's how that was selected specifically in this location.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan.
Sure.
Okay, moving on, we have another inquiry about noise walls. So will there be any noise walls constructed? Marlo, I know we touched on this environmental sided issue a little bit before, but do we want to kind of go back to it and talk about what it takes for noise walls?
That is a very good question. And as we did, as Amber stated earlier, that noise analysis is part of the project. Amber, I would ask if you could weigh in on maybe some of the factors that are considered in a noise analysis for a project.
Yes, thank you, Marlo. So as I mentioned earlier, we'll be conducting our noise study with the design of this project in this coming 2023. So as a part of analyzing noise impacts, we want to make sure that we're looking at our noise impacts related to the project we're constructing. And as part of that process, anywhere where we identify impacts, we'll look at if we can construct noise walls. So we do that in two phases. So is a noise wall feasible to construct? So that means, can we actually physically construct it? There aren't any utility impacts. There aren't any site distance impacts, things like that. We want to make sure we can construct the walls. And then we look at, are noise walls reasonable to construct? And that means, will they actually reduce the sound that you're hearing from your outdoor area of use of your backyard? Will the noise wall actually work? And then we do have to look at the cost of noise wall. So if it meets all of those measures, we'll determine that the noise walls are likely to construct. We will do a finalized vote to determine if they're actually desired by those citizens that are going to be protected. So that's what will go into all of that analysis process. Thank you so much for the question.
Thanks, Amber. Next question. When is DOT, okay, let me read this one again. What is Gdot going to do with the creek at the end of Jimmy Daniel Road at 316? So Marlo, sounds like there may be a creek in the vicinity of the project.
Yes, thank you, Kyle. That is a good question. That's another environmental question. We want to make sure that we protect our waters of the state. So I will ask Amber again if she can provide some insight on the answer to this question.
Thank you, Marlo. Yeah, so as part of the environmental process, right now we're doing our survey reports. So we're surveying for all of our waters of the US. And so as part of that process, once we identify all of our environmental resources, then we work with design to try to work on avoiding impacts if we're able to, or minimizing if we can't completely avoid. And then if we can't, then we'll mitigate. We are expecting that we will need a waters permit on this project and mitigation. And I don't know, we may be able to have some more preliminary design information on this from Ben Klopper.
Yes, thank you, Amber. From a design standpoint, we are considering these creeks. The existing culverts that are out there now, we will check the design of those to make sure that they are adequately sized to handle the flows. If not, they can be increased as necessary. And certainly where we're widening the road or even raising of the road up, that's going to mean those creeks, those culverts may need to be a little bit longer. And so that'll be part of the design and construction to make sure that they're all appropriately sized for the project. Thank you for the question.
Thanks, Amber and Ben, on that one. Okay, Kathy Mason has another question for us. Do you plan to widen Jimmy Daniel to the Atlanta Highway? So Marlo, any plans to expand Jimmy Daniel as part of this 316 improvement?
Thank you, Kyle. That's a good question. There may be other improvements along Jimmy Daniel that are planned that are not associated with this project. However, I will ask Mr. Ben Klopper to provide some additional detail.
Thank you very much, Marlo. Yeah, it's another good question. So as part of this project, no, there's no additional widening of Jimmy Daniel Road planned. Jimmy Daniel Road being not a state route, it's a local road. A widening project of that would likely have to be accomplished by the county. But the interchange here is designed to not preclude that future widening and to allow that to occur. So the bridge will be high enough, so that if it needs to be widened, trucks can still pass underneath it. The roundabouts that are planned, they can be widened a little to accommodate dual lanes through them as well. So good question, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, next question. Will there be a roundabout at Jimmy Daniel and Merriweather? So Marla, I don't think the preliminary plans include a roundabout there, but let's clarify that.
Thank you, Kyle. Yes, that is an interesting question. And I believe we've talked a little bit about Merriweather Drive earlier, and that it is improvements are not associated with this project, but I will ask Jonathan Langley to confirm that.
Yes, thank you, Marlo. And we certainly understand the importance of Merriweather Drive as it is access to the neighborhood. And why, while we're talking about all of the roundabouts here at the ramps, if there would be a question about a roundabout at Merriweather Drive. And in this case, as we've been saying, the answer to this is no. Merriweather Drive will remain in its current condition. The Jimmy Daniel Road grades are tying down right about at the same place as the existing entrance to the neighborhood, which is to say that entrance will remain just as it is in its current state based on the current layouts and designs. Thank you for your question.
Thanks for that, Jonathan. Next one. With the proposed 3 lanes that will head east to the Oconee connector, will the Oconee connector intersection be changed to allow for the additional lane? So Marlo, related to expansion and the Oconee connector, how do we like to clarify that one?
That is a very good question. I will ask Ben Klopper to weigh in on that response.
Thank you very much, Marlo. So the existing intersection of 316 and the Oconee connector is programmed for a separate grade separated interchange project. That's going to be part of the construction with this 316 Bundle 2 project. And that third lane, we call it an auxiliary lane, heading east from Jimmy Daniel to the Oconee connector, is it's necessary to make the two interchanges function well. There will be a public information open house for that project occurring in mid-June. The dates for that can be found on the 316 webpage. So thank you very much for the question.
Thanks, Ben. And y'all be sure to look out for the same type format presentation for Oconee Connector and also Virgil Langford later in June. Next one, let's see here. Is there any project completed or in process that is about the same size of the roundabout that you can point us to? So Marlo, as far as comparable projects and footprints, do we have any advice there on where folks may look to see what this one will look like in the future?
Thank you, Kyle. That was a good question. As I mentioned earlier, there are other interchanges within the state that have a similar configuration. One that you could reference as comparable in size, I-75 at Carbondale Road, just south of Dalton, is a completed interchange that uses completed diamond interchange that uses roundabouts. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Marlo. And that's a treatment that you're seeing for a lot of improvement projects like this for new interchanges. Roundabouts are proven that they work and they're very efficient and very safe. Okay, Mr. Jones has a question for us. Traveling east on 316, will the exit ramp to Jimmy Daniel be at current 316 grade? So Marlo, this sounds like another design question pertaining to elevation and grade changes.
Yes, Kyle, that is, thank you. That is a very good question that I will also refer to Mr. Ben Klopper.
Thank you very much, Marlo. So yeah, as you're traveling east on 316, that exit ramp, that will be at the 316 grade as it starts to depart from the highway. But then, yes, the elevation will change a little bit as it approaches Jimmy Daniel to raise that grade to meet Jimmy Daniel Road, which will be coming down back towards the existing ground. On that side of the road, the south side of 316, we're a little bit farther away. So the grade difference won't be quite as much as it will be on the north side, but yes, it will likely be up in the air a little bit. So thank you for the question.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, next up, will we have the opportunity to give comments on subsequent information, specifically the environmental impact and any noise impacts? Marlo, so this is public input on the incoming environmental work.
Thank you, Kyle. That's a very good question. So today we are currently in a public information open house. We have a virtual platform that will be open for several days. So we encourage you to visit that virtual meeting room and leave your comments there during the comment period. Once that comment period closes, Gdot is always open to receiving comments from the public. So feel free to contact Gdot with any comments that you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Marlo. Okay, next up, where is the second roundabout to be located? I'm having a hard time visualizing, so maybe Marlo, we could refer to the concept layout that folks have access to just to further clarify the location of both roundabouts.
Thank you, Kyle. That's a very good question. I know that Jonathan Langley will be able to walk through the layout and explain where that second roundabout is very well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marlo. I'd be glad to do that. For those of you that can see the slide that is on the screen here, it may be small for you. I'm going to describe what we're seeing on the screen, but I want you to know that there are also other ways for you to be able to see these layouts that I'm describing. So if you want to take a look at that to help you visualize, you can also go to the project website, which is included on the screen here. There's a QR code, and it is in our other materials as well. There's multiple ways to find that. So what we're looking at on the layout that's on the screen here shows that there is one roundabout on each side of the interchange. So for someone who's visualizing this in their head, if you think about something similar to an interstate interchange where you have a diamond shape and ramps that leave, in this case, 316 to go to the side road, at the end or the top of each of those ramps where the points of the diamond are formed on the side road, which is Jimmy Daniel Road, there will be a roundabout. And so that means there will be one roundabout for the ramps that are on the north side of 316 at Jimmy Daniel Road. And then there will be another roundabout on the south side of 316 along Jimmy Daniel Road. So someone, hypothetically, if you were driving just along 316, I'm sorry, just along Jimmy Daniel Road from the south, traveling north, you would enter a roundabout, navigate through that roundabout, go across the bridge over 316, navigate a second roundabout, and then continue to the north, and then you would pass Merriweather Drive. So I hope that that helps you to visualize what that drive might be like for someone traveling down Jimmy Daniel Road. If that doesn't fully answer your question, please feel free to visit our website where you can see the layout and an actual picture of what that is planned to look like. So thank you very much for that question.
Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, we have a question from Kurt up next. Is this design also planned to be used at the Oconee connector intersection? If both sets of stoplights are eliminated, I would expect a double-digit % drop in air pollution from cars not needing to accelerate from a stop anymore. Well done. So, Marlo, I know we have some public involvement coming up in June as it pertains to the Oconee connector, but any comments we want to make today pertaining to that?
I think that's a very good question. I think maybe have an environmental component as well as a design component. I will ask Ben Klopper, who's familiar with the Oconee project that's coming up, to provide some insight into that response. And if there's any environmental studies that we have seen where air quality is improved because of roundabouts, then I would ask Amber to weigh in on that also after Ben.
All right, thank you, Marlo. Another good question. At present, the design of the interchange at the Oconee connector does not include roundabouts. I believe that is a factor related to the amount of traffic through that interchange. But that question would need to be asked by the design team, or answered, by the design team for that project. And that can be done as part of the PIOH that's going to be coming up for that in next month. So sorry, not a full answer for that one, or not a totally complete answer. But I'll turn it over to Amber now to talk about the air quality impacts of roundabouts.
Thank you, Ben. So there's not a study just based on how roundabouts affect air quality. However, air quality is worsened by cars sitting and idling. So producing those roundabouts would have that expectation that it would have an improvement since cars will no longer be idling at a light. Thank you very much for the question.
Awesome. Thank y'all both for helping out there. And thanks for the kudos, Kurt. It's always nice to hear some positive comments. Next up, we have, what is the length of side roads paralleling 316? So Marlo, this sounds like a design question as it relates to potential changes to the side roads paralleling 316.
Thank you, Kyle. Yes, that is a design related question. I will ask Jonathan Langley to weigh in on the response to this question.
All right, thank you, Marlo. Yes, I will do my best to answer this question. And in an effort to be thorough, there are a couple ways I might interpret this. So I'm going to give maybe two answers and hope that by sharing both answers, we cover all the bases here. So when we talk about side roads that are paralleling 316, one way I might interpret that are the diamond-shaped ramps that come off of 316 and raise up to Jimmy Daniel Road, which will be the future access. If we're talking about those ramps, the lengths of those ramps are somewhere between 1,500 and 3,000 feet, depending on which ramp we're talking about. Another way to interpret that question may be talking about the auxiliary lanes, which are the lanes, it's the extra lane between this exit and the Oconee connector. And so the distance that that additional auxiliary lane will be traveling between Jimmy Daniel Road and the Oconee connector is about 2,000 feet. And that is completed under the other project that Ben was just talking about a moment ago. So there will be additional public involvement and presentations that you can attend if you're interested in hearing more about what's happening over on that project. So hopefully we've covered the bases with those two questions. If there is something else, please feel free. We're still accepting questions, so you can add a question to clarify if I did not answer that question. So thank you for that.
Perfect. Thanks, Jonathan. Next up, I know the widening of Jimmy Daniel is not a Gdot project. Do you have any info if and when that will start? So Marlo, how do we want to handle that one?
Thank you, Kyle. That's a good question. As I said, and you repeated, it is not a Gdot project. So we do not have information about the schedule for that project. I would encourage you, though, to contact the county and to get more information about it and the anticipated schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlo. Next question is from Jeff Hood, Marlo. Since the fuel tax has been suspended through July 15th and this particular tax funds Gdot projects, is there any concern this project could be delayed? So any alterations we're expecting for Jimmy Daniel?
That is a very good question. This is a very important corridor just to the state of Georgia, connecting the Athens and Atlanta metro areas. And so GDOT is committed to these projects. So we do not anticipate any delays to the delivery of this project at this time. And all the fund sources that are needed to ensure the delivery, GDOT will identify. So we will move forward with this project. There are no anticipated delays at this time due to the gas tax. Thank you. That was a very good question.
Thanks, Marlo. Okay, what do we have next here? On the Jimmy Daniel Merriweather 316 westbound exit ramp onto Jimmy Daniel and 316 westbound on-ramp, do these all come together at the single lane roundabout at Jimmy Daniel and Merriweather? And this came from Robert McKerney, Marlo. So this sounds like a design and sort of a layout clarification on where some of these new ramps and roundabouts will be located.
Yes, Kyle, Robert has a very good question that I will defer to Mr. Ben Klopper.
Thank you very much, Marlo. So the roundabout at the end of the ramps from 316 onto Jimmy Daniel will be separate from the intersection with Jimmy Daniel and Merriweather Drive. It's about 800 feet or so between where those two intersections will be. So not on top of each other, but separated out. So thank you for the question.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. Next question, Marlo, is will the exit and on-ramps for Jimmy Daniel at 316 remain at current grade, or will they roll with the lay of the land? So any expectations for major grade changes?
Thank you, Kyle. That was a very good question. I know that there are some significant changes that are going to occur in this 316 corridor. And so I will ask Jonathan Langley to provide a response to that.
Thank you very much, Marlo. So yes, the question here is about the grades associated with the ramps. And to first talk about that, we will look at the grades of the bridge. As Ben has talked about in some of his responses, the grades of Jimmy Daniel will raise up and above where they currently are. So this is changing from an at-grade intersection where everything is at the same level to a grade separated interchange where the bridge for Jimmy Daniel will go over 316. Now, why that's important is because when you're on the ramp and you're moving from Jimmy Daniel down to 316, that means that there is a grade change. The elevations are going from that higher elevation down to the lower elevation. And so as the grade changes, one of the things that our designers will do is they will look at those existing grades, and to the best of our ability, we do try and match the grades of that existing ground so that we limit the amount of impacts or the amount of additional construction to be no more than is absolutely necessary to tie those roads back in. So the grade will be higher at Jimmy Daniel. It will go down towards 316, and we will try and match the grade as much as possible in order to limit any kind of impacts. Thank you for your question.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, we have a follow-up question here. So will the roundabout and the ramps be constructed to be dual lane? Marlo, this is a design inquiry about the planned roundabouts. I believe they're just going to be a single lane configuration, but can we clarify that?
Thank you, Kyle. That is a good question. And I think that I will give that question to Ben Klopper to reply.
All right. Thank you very much, Marlo. So as designed for this project, the roundabouts will just be single lane. The confusion that I probably caused before with mentioning the dual lane would be in a situation where if Jimmy Daniel Road were widened in the future, those roundabouts could also themselves accommodate a second lane each. But as part of this project, just one single lane. So thank you for the question.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Ben. And we're just going to kind of go over the ground rules again. This live event's been ongoing for an hour. So for those of you who are interested in submitting us questions to learn more, just wanted to run through this for y'all. So during today's session, you're going to be on mute. However, throughout the session, you can submit questions using the Microsoft Teams live Q&A chat box. We urge you to keep your questions concise and specific to this project. Also, please use appropriate language. In a few moments, I'll read the questions for the project team to respond to. Keep in mind that we may group similar questions together. We will not repeat questions and answers until we have been through all questions. If we don't get to your question or the question involves a more detailed technical type response than we're able to get to you this evening, don't worry. We will respond back within 3 business days. For us to respond to you, however, it's important that you include your contact information. If you did not include your contact information when you entered this live event, please log back, exit, and log back in to provide us those contact details. A special note too that all comments submitted today will be part of the official public record. Because this is a virtual event, it's important that you use a strong Wi-Fi or reliable wired connection. But if you get disconnected, you can always log back into the session. A recording of this virtual meeting will be posted on the web page listed on your screen by Tuesday, May 31st. Jot down this web page or scan the QR code and enter to explore the virtual meeting room platform currently open for this virtual open house pertaining to 316 and Jimmy Daniel. Also, if there are any elected officials joining us today, please send us your name and office in the chat for our records. All righty. See what else we got questions wise here. Will the actual roundabout be in the middle of the current intersection? So Marlo, we want to clarify the location of the planned roundabouts.
Thank you, Kyle. That was a good question. So just for clarification, no, the roundabouts will be to the north and the south of the existing intersections. Thank you.
Awesome. Perfect. Jeff Hood has our next question. Please explain the bidding process to award this contract. So Marlo, as far as the alternative and design build delivery, could we flesh that out for Jeff Hood?
That is a great question. So this project is going to be delivered with design build methodology, which combines design and construction into one contract. So Gdot completes the preliminary work, the preliminary design work, environmental work, and then awards the contract to a contractor and an engineering firm that will complete the design and the construction. And the benefit of design build is that you save time in the process and getting to an executed contract, and also that would lead to saving time during the delivery phase of the project. And then it also allows for additional innovation because you bring the contractor on early and is involved in the design process. So that was a very good question. Thank you.
Thanks, Marlo. Jeff has a follow-up. Has the land needed for this project already been acquired, or is this land acquisition process still underway? So Marlo, this is a right-of-way question. Could we clarify that for Jeff?
That is a very good question that I know that our resident expert, Mr. Phil Copeland, can respond to. So I will defer that question to Phil.
Thank you very much, Marlo, for the opportunity. As you've heard others speak earlier tonight about the schedule of the project, the design is still in process and the environmental efforts are still ongoing. So as they are nearing the further refinement of the design and the environmental process, it is anticipated that the right-of-way acquisition process will begin in probably somewhere around the second quarter of calendar year 2023. So it has not begun yet, but it is anticipated to begin in the second quarter of calendar year 2023. And thank you very much for the question.
Appreciate it, Phil. Scott Mason has our next question. Our experience in another community has been that semi-trailer trucks often overrun small roundabout circles. How large will the radius of the roundabout be? Will artwork or landscaping be installed? So Marlo, we get this question a lot with roundabouts and folks thinking large vehicles can't navigate them. How do we want to explain how this one will be able to service those vehicles?
That is a very good question. Thank you, Kyle. Those things are taken into consideration during the design. And so I know that Mr. Ben Klopper can provide some additional input into how that is accommodated.
All right, thank you, Marlo. And yes, absolutely correct. The design of a roundabout, we have to carefully consider the different vehicles that are going to be traveling through it. What we are considering at these locations is roundabouts with 65-foot radiuses, which is 130 feet from the outside edge to the outside edge of the roundabout. Within that, there'll be a 16-foot travel lane, which is a little bit wider than your typical travel lane as you're driving down the road, which allows cars and buses to navigate that through the roadway. And then to accommodate the larger trucks, we'll have what we call a truck apron, which is kind of a raised but still concrete area towards the middle of the median of the roundabout that trucks, as they pass through, oftentimes like their rear wheels will track up onto that. But that's expected and it's part of the design and it's something that we model. I guess to the last part of the question regarding landscaping, the typical roundabout constructed by Gdot does include some landscaping in the center, but that is, in the middle and even closer to the middle than the truck apron, so it should not be impacted by vehicles traveling through the roundabout. But good question, thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Jeff Hood has another question for us. Since a county-maintained road is involved in this project, what type of cooperation is needed and expected from Oconee County officials? So Marlo, you want to talk a little bit about the collaboration with Oconee County and the local governments?
Yes, thank you, Kyle and Jeff. That is a very good question. So Oconee County is one of the primary stakeholders in that we coordinate with in this project. We have met with them during the process that this design that you see was developed and gotten great input from them. We have addressed their concerns throughout the design process. And so any roadway that's not part of the Georgia DOT right-of-way will be deeded to the county when the project is complete. So that was a very good question. Thank you.
Thanks for that explanation, Marlo.
Kyle.
Okay, Kurt Dahlstrom has a question for us. How far into the tree line will you need to cut on the north and south side of 316 to build the roundabouts? So Marlo, what potential impacts are we looking as far as the tree line off Jimmy Daniel and 316?
Thank you, Kyle. That was a very good question. There are impacts with any construction project. We have to clear some land in order to build this improvement. And so I would ask Jonathan Langley to provide some additional details on the tree line changes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marlo. So thinking about the tree line here, what I want to do is talk about it in terms of the placement of these roundabouts or the location where the top of the ramp comes to Jimmy Daniel Road. And the reason I describe that is because, again, if you imagine this diamond shape, or if you look at the layout that is on the screen, you can see that the ramps come off of 316, they go up to Jimmy Daniel Road, and they tie in at the roundabout. So the offset of that roundabout is going to share the furthest offset where clearing would be required parallel to 316. And so with that, along the north side of 316, the furthest location that we anticipate any kind of clearing would be about 400 feet. And on the south side, where that roundabout is located, would be a little bit more at about 600 feet. As you can see, that roundabout is offset a little bit further to the south because of the shape of the existing properties. Now, I do want to point out, as I was saying at the beginning of this, that it does taper back down. So that is the widest that it would possibly be. But as you get closer to 316, the amount of clearing would then also diminish, would also go down as you're getting closer to 316. So hopefully that goes towards answering your questions. We will only cut down trees that are in the Georgia DOT right-of-way, or where we have an easement or some other kind of property that has been acquired. So you will know if that area is associated with anything adjacent to a property that perhaps you own. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jonathan. All right, Jeff Hood has another one for us. Public service announcement. The Oconee County Commissioners will host a town hall meeting on Tuesday, June 14th at 6 p.m. at the Oconee County Civic Center, and they will welcome questions concerning Jimmy Daniel Road. So thank you for that, that clarification, that statement there, Jeff. We have, looks like a question from C. Copeland here. Will the abandoned house on the eastern side of Jimmy Daniel north of the intersection be removed? So Marlo, any information pertaining to the abandoned house in this area?
Thank you, Kyle. That was a good question. As we mentioned, this is still in very early stages right-of-way acquisition. So Phil, I would ask you to weigh in on the abandoned house on the eastern side of Jimmy Daniels.
Sure. Thank you very much, Marlo. As you'll notice on the concept layout that you see on the screen in the northeast quadrant of the roundabout of Jimmy Daniel and State Route 316, you'll see the house I think that you're mentioning. And based on the layout now, you'll see a solid red line that is to the right or to the east of the existing property line of that parcel. And that red line does currently indicate that there will be a right-of-way acquisition that will impact that house. And if that is the final decision on the right-of-way to impact the house, yes, it would be purchased as part of that transaction and would be removed as part of the right-of-way transaction. Thank you very much for your question.
Thanks, Phil. As a resident in Jennings Mill, I'm concerned about being able to get onto Jimmy Daniel from Merriweather due to the lack of a traffic light and increased volume and speed coming off the ramp. So Marlo, how would we like to address potential concerns for Jimmy Daniel at Merriweather once this project is complete?
Thank you for that question, Kyle. Speed through the corridor is very important for safety reasons. And so I will ask Mr. Ben Klopper to weigh in on whether we believe that the current design will encourage speeders.
Thank you, Marlo. I totally understand this question. With the large neighborhood there, very close into where the interchange will be. So speaking to the first part of the question regarding increased traffic volumes, we don't think that this interchange will increase the volume of traffic along Jimmy Daniel Road. The focus of the project is more about separating out the Jimmy Daniel Road and State Route 316 traffic where they cross. Regarding speed along Jimmy Daniel Road, certainly with traffic now, with the change of grade, traffic will be coming downhill from the roundabouts towards Merriweather Drive, which could lead to an increase in speed. However, I think that's mitigated by the fact that we have a roundabout there at that location. The roundabout, by its nature, it forces traffic or vehicles to go through there at probably around a maximum of around 25 miles an hour, which should have some calming effect on traffic as it approaches Merriweather Drive. So I hope that answers the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. I have one from Jay Jones up next. Do you know approximately how many yards of dirt this project will need, or is there enough dirt within the footprint not to have to haul any in? So Marlo, getting dirty with this question.
Thank you, Kyle. That is a very good question. Ultimately, the final design will be established by the design build team, although we do have estimates now. And so I will ask Ben Klopper to weigh in on the estimated amount of earth that we expect to move for this.
All right, thank you, Marlo. Yeah, and so speaking in very rough numbers, because that's kind of the stage of the design that we're at this point, it's about 220,000 cubic yards of earthwork for this project. I would expect, in a situation like this, where we are taking one road up, in elevation over another, in the end, there will probably need to be dirt brought onto the project to accommodate that. However, one of the benefits of this being a design build project is that contractor and that design build team are going to be very focused on minimizing the amount of earthwork that has to be brought in and trying to balance out the project as much as possible. But they'll be finalizing that design and finalizing that amount of earthwork as they get into their final design. So good question. Thank you for the question.
Thanks, Ben. I have another one in here from Kurt Dahlstrom. Will you need to buy out home properties on St. Andrews Drive or Miller's Lake Drive on the north side of 316 to build the ramps / roundabouts? I don't see how the ramp fits otherwise. So Marlo, do we want to clarify potential property impacts on St. Andrew Drive or Miller's Lake Drive north of 316?
Very good question, and I can understand why that would be something of interest. Right of way related questions, I'm going to defer to Mr. Phil Copeland. Phil?
Thanks again, Marlo. Yes, if you'll visit the concept layout again there on the web page, you will notice that there are several properties along St. Andrews Drive that there is an indication that there will be required right-of-way. And then there's a couple along the Millers Lake Drive cul-de-sac also. However, it does not show that the right-of-way will be significant to the point of having to purchase or relocate the residents of the home. Keep in mind that this is still preliminary design and they're continuing to refine the design. And once we know for certain the right-of-way that is needed, then we would be able to better identify if those homes are going to be impacted. But right now, if you look at the display, you will see the red line that is indicating the limits of acquisition as we know them today. Thank you very much for the question.
I appreciate that detail, Phil, answering that question on potential impacts. So we have about 40 minutes left. It sounds like we don't have any new questions queued up right now. So we're going to go back to the beginning and start to address some questions that we had earlier for those who may be interested in those topics. Let's see here. So as far as the construction period when work begins, which we anticipate to be sometime in 2024 on Jimmy Daniel at 316, will I still be able to use the intersection during the construction period? And basically, how will that work for me as a driver once it becomes a work zone, Marlo?
Hello. That is a very good question, Kyle. Yes, and as we have responded, the traffic will be maintained during the construction period. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, looks like we actually had a new one come in as I was saying that no new questions had come in. So it looks like we have Jeff Hood has another question for us, Marlo. As of today at noon, there was a campaign sign in the median of State Route 316 Jimmy Daniel Road intersection. Is this against state law and something that Gdot monitors? So Marlo's definitely a Gdot maintenance and right-of-way type question, it sounds like, but how would we like to clarify our stance on encroachment of signs in the right-of-way?
Yes, thank you, Kyle. That is a good question. Gdot typically does not allow signs from third parties within the right-of-way. So that's something, thank you for bringing it to our attention, that we can have our district forces look into. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jeff. All right, let's go and review some earlier questions here. So we talked about the work zone and still maintaining traffic. We did have two questions come in previously pertaining to Julian Drive access. Marlo, do we want to kind of clarify what the footprint of this particular project is and if Julian Drive is included?
Hello, okay. That is a good question. And again, for clarification.
I want to welcome everyone to this virtual presentation and Q&A for this.
Hello.
We got you.
That Julian Drive is a separate project outside of this bundle. So I'll ask Ben to just reaffirm earlier statements concerning Julian Drive.
Thank you, Marlo. Yes, that is correct. Julian Drive is not part of this project, but there are planned improvements there through a separate project by Gdot for its work along 316. Information about that can be found on the 316 webpage. So thank you for the question.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. And while we have a little bit of time left, we're actually going to sort of go back to where we started in the presentation to roll the video that features our project manager, Achor Njoku. So we're going to roll that tape right now.
I want to welcome everyone to this virtual presentation and Q&A for the State Route 316 at Jimmy Daniels Road project. My name is Achor Njoku, and I'm the project manager for this roadway improvement project. Our goal today is twofold. First, we want to provide you with an overview of the project, and we will do that in this presentation. Secondly, after the presentation, we will transition into a live Q&A session, which will give you an opportunity to have your questions answered from our designated subject matter experts. Our subject matter experts will be able to answer questions about the proposed conceptual design, right-of-way, and our environmental impacts, and more. However, we may not be able to answer every question, and in some cases, we may need to do additional research before providing a response. As Kyle mentioned, you will be on mute throughout today's event. However, you can submit questions using the Microsoft Teams live Q&A chat box at any time, including during this pre-recorded presentation. Again, thank you for joining us. This project proposes two changes at State Route 316 and Jimmy Daniels Road. Number one, remove the existing signalized at-grade crossing at the intersection. Number two, create a grade-separated diamond interchange with a single-lane roundabout to be constructed at the State Route 316 eastbound and westbound ramp intersections with Jimmy Daniels Road. It is important to note that the proposed improvements are part of a series of reconstruction projects along State Route 316 from State Route 20 in Gwinnett County to State Route 10 in Athens, Oconee County. These projects will upgrade sections of State Route 316 to more of a free-flow facility, which may provide a safer travel experience. State Route 316 is a primary east-west corridor in northeast Georgia that connects Greater Atlanta and the Athens metropolitan area. These improvement projects will address some of the primary challenges along the corridor, particularly high crash rates and congestion. This project is located in Oconee County, just west of Athens. The overall project length is approximately 1.2 miles. Finally, as you can see on this map, this project is bundled with other design-build projects as part of State Route 316 Bundle 2. The three Georgia DOT projects have been packaged together for procurement and construction. The other two design-build projects appear grayed on your screen. Next month, in mid-June, we will have a similar meeting to address these projects. This slide shows the proposed conceptual design or layout. This is a preliminary layout and subject to change. We call this layout the preferred alternative as it best balances the needs of the project corridor with potential impacts such as property and environmental impacts. If you haven't already visited the virtual meeting room on the project website, I encourage you to do so. A link and a QR code are provided here. Within the virtual meeting room, you can view the proposed concept in greater detail, view the typical sections, and watch a visualization video which offers an aerial, three-dimensional perspective of the project to assist you in better visualizing the proposed improvements along the corridor. During our Q&A portion, you may ask questions about the concept. Let's talk about the existing conditions within the project corridor. And we've provided a few statistics to help frame the primary challenges: traffic, vehicle incidents, and congestion. We measure traffic congestion using what's called level of service. Level of service quantitatively describes operational conditions of a roadway based on factors such as speed, travel time, maneuverability, delay, and safety. Level of service is determined with a letter from A to F. Level of service A represents the best operational conditions, and F represents the worst. For the intersection of State Route 316 at Jimmy Daniels Road, we are seeing a level of service C in the AM peak hour and level of service D in the PM peak hour. Level of service C indicates stable but restricted traffic flow with significant vehicle interactions. Level of service D indicates that there is an even heavier volume of vehicles, restricting both vehicle speed and maneuverability. If we do nothing at this intersection, you have what we call the no-build condition. We can expect these already existing challenges to worsen in future years. Traffic volumes are expected to increase, so the number of crashes are also likely to increase. By 2028, the intersection is expected to perform at a level of service E in the AM peak hour and level of service F in the PM peak hour. By moving forward with the project, we anticipate improvements or benefits. We expect this project will improve mobility, reduce potential severity and frequency of crashes, and improve traffic flow conditions. By eliminating at-grade intersection, it will reduce the number of vehicle conflict points and therefore potentially reduce the number of crashes at the intersection. And by 2028, the anticipated open to traffic year, the SR 316 eastbound ramp intersection and SR 316 westbound ramp intersection with Jimmy Daniels Road will operate at a level of service A. This is the proposed project schedule. We started the environmental process in 2021, and it will continue until 2023. We are currently conducting a virtual public information open house, which includes the virtual events you are participating in today. In 2023, we will select a design build team, and we anticipate construction starting in 2024. We expect substantial completion of this project by 2027. We will continue to provide regular updates and communication to stakeholders and the public throughout the life of the project. It's important to note that the project schedule and the dates are subject to change. As discussed earlier in the presentation, we encourage you to visit the virtual meeting room platform on the project website. There you will be able to view project information on the environmental process, current concept layouts, anticipated right-of-way needs, noise barrier information, as well as other details. Once you have viewed the materials, you will also have the opportunity to provide comments on the project. Georgia DOT encourages you to comment on any aspect of the project, from conceptual design to environmental process. Robust feedback ensures that decisions are made in consideration of and to the benefit of the public needs and preferences. To that end, we have provided several ways for you to comment as shown on your screen. The comment period is open until June 10th, so you still have time to submit your feedback. Once the comment period has ended, the project team will respond to all comments in the official comment response letter. Once completed, the letter will be posted to the project web page. Our goal is to post the letter in July. This concludes this pre-recorded presentation. Stay up to date on the project by visiting the project web page at the link listed here. I will now turn it back to Kyle to begin the live Q&A portion of the event. Again, thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Achor. Glad we were able to run that video describing what the planned improvements are here at 316 and Jimmy Daniel. So we've had a few more published questions come in since we queued that video. So we're going to try and address those right now. So first up, Marlo, new question that came in. For those of us whose property backs up to 316, what is planned in regards to noise barrier? So this sounds like another environmental question.
Thank you, Kyle. That is a very good question. And so we have answered that question previously tonight. And I will ask Amber Phillips to remind our participants of the answer to the question as to noise barriers being constructed along the corridor.
Thank you, Marlo. So right now we will be conducting a noise study as part of this project. The way we do noise studies are based on the project's design. So we want to make sure that we're obtaining the noise on the proposed project that will be constructed. And so that will occur in 2023 as design develops. And if we find out during that noise analysis that a property is impacted, we will look at if we can provide noise mitigation. And as I mentioned earlier, the way we look at that is, can a wall be constructed feasibly so there isn't any utility conflicts or any site distance issues? If none of those issues exist and a noise wall can be physically constructed, we'll look at if it's reasonable to construct. And the way we look at that is, will the noise wall actually be reducing the sound at the property? And what is it cost reasonable to construct? And as a final check, we also want to make sure that it is desired by those that it is protecting. So we will make sure that we go out to the community and determine that they would like a noise wall if the noise wall is found to be feasible and reasonable to construct. Thank you very much for the question.
Perfect. Thanks, Amber. Next question is just pertaining to what some of the items on the concept layout mean. So on the map you've been showing, what do the red dots mean? Will this project impact homes on Gray Drive as a follow-up? So Marlo, what do the red dots mean, and will there be any impacts on Gray Drive?
Thank you, Kyle. Good question. I will reiterate what our standard meaning by the red dots is an acquisition, but I will ask Phil Copeland to weigh in on that, and also the impact to the homes on Grays Drive.
Sure. Thank you very much, Marlo. As I've mentioned before, if you visit the concept layout on the virtual meeting room, you'll notice a legend up in the top left corner. And there is a legend reference that the red dots, when they appear on a property, do indicate that there is the potential of a displacement. And what that means is that there is an anticipation that a structure would be acquired inside the right-of-way that would require a displacement of either a residential occupant or a business occupant. On this particular project, you'll only see one red dot in the northeast quadrant of Jimmy Daniel and State Route 316. As we've mentioned before, that is a residential structure that does currently fall within the footprint of the required right-of-way. The properties along Gray Drive, further to the east, do not currently indicate a right-of-way acquisition being required along those properties for the purposes of this project. So right now, based on the preliminary design so far, there is not an expectation that the properties on Gray Drive will require right-of-way acquisition. Thank you very much for your question.
Thanks for that clarification, Phil. We have another semi-trailer question related to roundabouts and navigating roundabouts. So our experience in another community has been that semi-trailer trucks often overrun smaller roundabout circles. How large would the radius of the roundabout be? So Marlo, I know these are designed of a footprint to be a single lane roundabout, but how do we want to expand on what the actual radius is and how these large vehicles will be able to get through them?
Thank you, Kyle. That is a good question. Those things, as we discussed earlier, are taken into account during the design process for those roundabouts. And I will ask Jonathan Langley to provide some additional detail into how that is accounted for.
Thank you, Marlo. Yes, so when we think about these roundabouts and we think about the potential for semi-trailers or commercial vehicles to use the roundabouts, we understand that you want to be sure that someone is going to be able to navigate that without any kind of issues or incidents. In the case of the question here, the question was partially, what is the size of that roundabout going to be? And in this case, from one side all the way to the other side, the diameter of that roundabout is about 130 feet. And the roundabouts are designed in such a way that commercial vehicles or semi-trailers will be able to navigate through these roundabouts. And so a vehicle approaching the roundabout, say, for example, a semi-trailer, would enter into the roundabout and at a reasonable speed move their way around that roundabout to the exit which they were planning to take. What might happen with a semi-trailer in that case is that the very back wheels of that semi-trailer may cross out of the lane and into a zone that we call an apron. It's an area that might look like a curb or a little bit like a curb, but there is an area that we call the apron that is intentionally included in a roundabout design so that if a large vehicle does navigate through that roundabout, they will be able to keep their truck with all wheels either within the lane or tracking just across that apron there. So these roundabouts have been sized so that commercial vehicles or semi-trailers can navigate through them. Thank you for your question.
Thanks for that breakdown, Jonathan. Scott has another one for us. There is a design that would drop 316 under Jimmy Daniel, leaving Jimmy Daniel flat with a single large traffic circle on top. Was this considered? So Marlo, a little bit different than what we have presented today with this concept. How do we want to answer that follow-up for Scott?
Thank you, Kyle. Yes, that is a big change from what we have established so far. It may have been something that was looked at in the past. So I will ask Mr. Ben Klopper to weigh in on that alternate design of taking 316 underneath Jimmy Daniel.
Thank you, Marlo. It's a very interesting question. So short answer, no, we have not looked specifically at that alternative. Another alternative we did consider, though, was leaving Jimmy Daniel at the grade it's at now and taking 316 up and over. What we found with that was approximately double the cost in terms of construction due to the amount of work that had to be done on 316 and the reconstruction that was necessary. I would think, speaking at a high level, that using the proposed suggestion would probably have similar construction costs. It would require a similar amount of reconstruction to 316, which would really drive that. And so, again, it's probably about double the cost of the alternative that we're showing as the preferred right now. And so, interesting question. I appreciate it. Interesting to think about, but and a good one. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate the question, Scott. Next one is there a plan on reconnecting Virgil Langford Road that was split by 316 being built? So I know we do have some additional outreach coming up in June as it pertains to Virgil Langford, but anything we want to clarify tonight, Marlo?
Thank you for that question, Kyle. The work on Virgil Langford is associated with PI number 00136768. And the PIOH, a similar meeting as we're having tonight, will be held later in the month of June. And so we'll have more detail on that at that time. Thank you.
Thanks for that answer, Marlo, and hopefully y'all tune in. And like we said previously, June 16th is when the live virtual open house is going to go live for that particular area and also Oconee connector as it pertains to 316 improvements. Okay, we have a right-of-way question here, Marlo. How is the value of right-of-way determined, or is it an attorney required to mediate this?
That's a very good question. I'm sure that's something that is of interest, especially if your property is being acquired. I'll ask Phil Copeland to respond to that question.
Thank you, Marlo. Yes, that's a question we get quite often at PIOH meetings. And to answer the question as far as how is the right-of-way, value of the right-of-way determined, I would encourage you again to visit the property acquisition section of the PIOH virtual meeting room. There is a brochure called What Happens When My Property is Needed for a Transportation Facility. That does not only walk through the valuation process, it also walks through the acquisition process. So it gives you a good, clear understanding of the entire spectrum of the right-of-way acquisition process. But to answer the question specifically to how is the right-of-way determined, how is the value of the right-of-way determined, there will be an appraisal report prepared by the department after an owner contact is made with you as the resident, as the owner of the impacted property, to determine the value of the property. It will not only determine the value of the entire property, but it will determine the value of the part that is acquired and any consequential damages to the remainder. So the value of the right-of-way is ultimately determined through the appraisal process. As far as whether or not an attorney is required to mediate this, it is totally the property owner's discretion as to whether they engage an attorney to assist them with the right-of-way acquisition process. However, I will state that most of the right-of-way transactions that are done by the Georgia Department of Transportation are able to be facilitated without the property owner having to engage an attorney. But again, it's totally at your discretion as an impacted property owner as to whether you engage an attorney to assist you. And again, thank you very much, and visit the property acquisition section to get a better understanding of the full spectrum of the right-of-way acquisition process. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Okay, looks like we have another one coming in from Kurt. Why do the right-of-way red lines continue on into the woods north of St. Andrews Drive beyond the planned roundabout location? What modifications are planned there? And also, will the ponds be impacted? So it sounds like another concept map and right-of-way question here, Marlo.
Well, we may need some clarification on this question. There are some other lines that are the same color on the map. I'll defer this question to Ben Klopper because it could be outlining a different feature in the design.
All right. Yes, thank you, Marlo. So yeah, as Marlo mentioned, we eventually run out of colors. So we have several different features that are identified with red lines on the display. One of those, of course, that we've been looking at is right-of-way. Another one of those red lines, it has some little triangles attached to it. Those represent ESAs, or environmentally sensitive areas. So in that area between St. Andrews Drive and Merriweather Drive, there is a blue line with two of those red lines on either side. That represents a stream and a 25-foot buffer around that stream. And I think that's what's being referred to in this question by the red lines north of St. Andrews Drive. And so that's not right-of-way in that area. That's simply delineating an area that from an environmental standpoint we need to pay attention to. So I hope that answers the question. If not, please ask it again, and maybe we can get it clarified and I can do a better job answering it for you. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Ben. And Kurt, if you're still with us, feel free to hit us again on the Q&A if we need to clarify that explanation at all. All right. Still got 12 minutes left, so plenty of time for y'all to shoot any questions our way. But the main thing we want to do too is remind you, hopefully y'all have enjoyed this virtual format. We've been able to get some good questions answered tonight. It's sort of a new footprint we have doing this virtual format, and also the website. So pretty much every project now has that virtual footprint. It's very engaging, it's very informative to give you the why, the when, and the where to where Gdot is making improvements. So we encourage you to visit the Transforming 316 website. As you can see that we've flashed up on a few of the slides. That website will remain live. It has great details on all the projects planned in the corridor, but specifically as it pertains to Jimmy Daniel, comments will still be received through June 10th. So please visit that website. As soon as you come on the top there, you'll be queued to enter the virtual meeting room, and it's going to have a lot of the key information that we've discussed today. It's also going to have an easy to navigate survey form for you to submit your feedback and your comments, because we want as many as possible to make sure we're engaging with you and that we're listening to what your concerns are, and we'll also take some positive comments. Thankfully, we've had some good kudos tonight, and I know that means a lot to the folks that work very hard to get this project to this point, and we'll also try to deliver the improvements here along the 316 corridor. So let's see here. You can see Shane, one of our moderators, gave a reminder link there in the chat as it pertains to that website I was just talking about. And kind of going back to some of the questions we had earlier for those who may have joined us after 5 or after 5:30. Marlo, maybe as it just pertains to this idea of raising the grade of the road over 316 and having roundabouts off a highway on new ramps. We had sort of addressed that previously, as that's kind of a newer concept that folks are seeing across the state of Georgia. Can we just talk about the benefits of that concept as it pertains to operations and safety, separating the conflicts, but also having roundabouts to calm traffic?
Thank you, Kyle. That is a good question. And yes, this is a design that you're going to see more and more of throughout the state. It actually lends itself to decreasing the potential for crashes, because you eliminate those conflict points and you have a continuous flow through the interchange, so operations are improved also. And as Amber mentioned earlier tonight, we don't have detailed studies that show it, but if you have cars moving and not idling, you have a benefit also to air quality. So Gdot sees a lot of benefit in this design, and so for that reason, we're implementing it in this corridor, which is a very important corridor for the state. Thank you.
Thanks for that breakdown, Marlo. And it looks like we had another question come in from Jeff Hood. The speed limit at this intersection is currently 55 miles per hour. Will it remain the same once this project is complete? So Marlo, do we expect any alterations to the posted speed limit?
That's a good question. We don't expect any alterations at this time to the speed limit. If there are any changes, we'll make sure all that's coordinated and signed appropriately. So more information to come. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for that clarification. We got Kurt hit us with another one here. It looks like he's kind of clarified his comment here for us, Ben and Marlo. I see. So the red dots that are north of St. Andrews and east of Jimmy Daniel and south of Merriweather are environmental markers, and the ponds stay as they are. Thanks for your time tonight. So could we clarify that one more time as it relates to those areas?
Yes, that's a good question. Ben, if you could just speak on that again, just to make sure that it's clarified.
Certainly, yes. Appreciate the follow-up question to make sure we get it answered correctly. You are correct. Those red lines that are east of Jimmy Daniel, south of Merriweather, and north of St. Andrew, those are all related to environmental resources. And regarding the ponds, no construction activity would be up near the ponds. So thank you for the question.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Ben. All right, y'all. Still got some time for some more questions to come in, and while we await more to publish from you all, we'll kind of go back in time a little bit to some of the other questions that your fellow citizens hit us with. Let's see here. Let's pick one out here. As far as settling on the roundabouts, Marlo, do we want to explain what type of study goes into determining what intersection treatment we would have in this case? So, why not a stop condition at the top of the new ramps? Why not a traffic signal at the top of the new ramps? Why did we decide to go with roundabouts in this proposal?
That is a very good question, Kyle. Thank you. That there is a lot of detailed analysis that goes into the decision on what the intersection type, to intersection control type is. And I picked on Jonathan a lot as well as Ben, but I'll defer this one to Jonathan to give a little more detail about how that intersection control is decided.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to talk about that. And so one of the things that we do at the beginning of a project, especially early on, before a concept, before we get to where we are right now, showing you lines on a page, showing you what we think this design is going to be. One of the first things that we do is we look at all of the options that could be considered. And we've heard this asked several different ways throughout the evening tonight, people asking about different things that we have considered, whether it be different arrangements for the roundabouts themselves, whether it be Jimmy Daniel going under 316 instead of what we're seeing on the screen here with Jimmy Daniel going up and over 316. We've heard questions about the consideration for the entrance at Merriweather. So all of these things early in the concept phase, before we get to this point where we're looking at these lines on the page, we're looking at all the different options, all the different ways or alternatives that could be considered. And when we do that, we want to consider a number of different variables. We want to think about the environment. We want to think about the safety of the people who are traveling in the corridor. We want to think about how it changes the access for people who are traveling in this area. We want to think about congestion and a thing called mobility, which is just people moving around within the corridor. We want to think about the impacts that it has to property and to any of the streams or any other environmental considerations. And you've heard other kinds of impacts that we've talked about tonight as well. So we go through a number of different steps of looking at all of those different things, considering all those different ideas before we make a final selection. And so that means one of the things that we look at is what's going to perform best at the top of these ramps. Is a roundabout going to perform best for congestion and safety and these other impacts that we talked about? Will a traffic signal perform best? Will a simple stop sign with a four-way stop be the best alternative? So we look at all of those different factors and get an analysis together that answers that question before we come to you at this stage to propose what we then will move forward with. So we still are, part of the way through the process. This design is not complete yet, but we feel like we've done enough analysis to come to you and say that this is a viable alternative that shows the least amount of impact for the most benefit, also balancing out cost and some of the other things that we've spoken about. So hopefully that provides a high-level overview for you of just all the different things that we look at and maybe some of the things that went into this design before we got to the day to sharing this here with you today. So thank you for the question and the opportunity to talk a little bit more about that.
Thanks for that, Jonathan. That was a really good breakdown on just all the behind the scenes work that goes into just getting this presentation that we're giving you all today. 2 minutes left, so kind of hitting some of the high points of questions that were asked previously. Marlo, as it pertains to delivering this project, we've had some questions about any gas tax suspension, potentially delaying the project. We've had questions about the budget. Do we just kind of want to reiterate what Gdot's commitment is to the 316 improvements overall in this corridor? I know it's about a 17-mile area where there's a lot of projects coming in the next 5 to 10 years. So any comments there?
Thank you, Kyle. Yes, I will just reiterate that this is a significant corridor for Gdot for the state of Georgia, a major east-west connector between Athens and Atlanta metro area. And this is one of several projects that Gdot is putting priority on in order to improve the mobility and to enhance the safety and to improve the traffic flow through this area. And so we are committed to the project. We're committed to funding the project and with whatever sources are necessary to do that. And so we're glad that there's a lot of attention and a lot of good feedback that we're getting on this project, as well as the earlier project that we had a virtual public meeting for, and we are anticipating additional good feedback through the PIOHs that are to come for the rest of the bundles that are being delivered by Design Build, which allows for innovation by having one contract with a designer and a builder. So thank you for your participation.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Marlo. It looks like we're at the end of our time here with the State Route 316 at Jimmy Daniel virtual presentation and Q&A. Thanks to all the subject matter experts. We hope you, as the citizens who engaged with us tonight, got the answers you were looking for. And again, we encourage everyone to tell your friends, tell your family to go to the website, Transforming State Route 316, to get your voice heard and learn more about this project and many others in the 316 corridor. And remember, we're still accepting your comments through June 10th on State Route 316 at Jimmy Daniel. So hope everybody has a great evening.